have seen issues of a religious leader threatening a governor. If you fail to sponsor us for holy pilgrimage, you have already lost your second term bid. Is it supposed to be like that?
When religion works hand in hand with power, public accountability must work even closer. Welcome to Big Story. I'm Oluwayemi Adelakun. Today, our conversation sits at the crossroads of faith, governance, and public finance. We're examining a subject that stirs deep emotions and even deeper questions. Holy journeys, empty treasuries, the politics of pilgrimage spending. Government involvement in pilgrimage sponsorship in Nigeria did not begin as a political spectacle. In the early post-independent years, state support for pilgrimages was largely administrative, helping citizens navigate foreign travel, ensuring safety and coordinating logistics for religious obligations, particularly the Hajj. Over time, this support became institutionalized with the creation of pilgrims' welfare boards at federal and state levels. But what began as coordination gradually evolved into full-scale sponsorship, subsidies, early aid, allowances, and extensive public spending, all funded by taxpayers' money. Recent investigations show that between 2022 and 2024, the federal government and at least 21 state governments spent approximately 119.9 billion naira on Christian and Muslim pilgrimage sponsorships combined. In 2022 and 2023, smaller sums were recorded, but in 2024 alone, 105 billion naira was reportedly spent on Hajj sponsorships by the federal government and state. Fast forward to today, Nigeria is grappling with rising inflation, unemployment, infrastructure decay, fuel subsidy removal, and mounting debt pressures. Yet every year, billions of naira are budgeted and spent sending thousands of citizens on religious pilgrimages abroad. These has triggered tough national questions. Is pilgrimage sponsorship still a moral responsibility of government in a constitutionally secular state, or has it become a political instrument, a way to court religious loyalty, reward supporters, and project piety at public expense? Are we witnessing faith in action or fiscal indiscipline disguised as devotion? Joining me on this big conversation is Ignatius Bosalime-Fino, researcher and public affairs analyst, as we interrogate the history, the politics, and the economic implications of pilgrimage spending in Nigeria. Welcome on board, Fino.
Good morning, Yimi.
Good morning to you.
I'm glad to be here this morning.
We're glad to have you as well. So let's start from the basics of Fino. Nigeria is a secular state. And then looking at that, do you think the state governors and, of course, the federal government should sponsor pilgrimages, for some certain persons?
Nigeria is presumed and assumed to be a secular state on paper, not in reality. But there is one thing that is very fundamental. Nigeria is a religious society, but we are not godly. Now, the two major religions in this country are the Christian faith and the Islamic faith. The apex body representing the Christian faith is called the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN. Then while the apex body representing the Islamic faith is the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, where His Eminence Sahad Abubakar happened to be the leader of the Muslim Ummah in Nigeria and our own Amir Hajj for the country. You see, when we are talking about religion, Karl Marx made an assertion. He said when it comes to the issue of religious argument, man tends to be irrational. Now, when we are talking about state sponsorship of pilgrimage to Holy Land in a secular state, it becomes what we call financial indiscipline. We have a lot of citizens in this country. We have those who are traditional adherents, and we have those who don't believe in any form of religion. They are free thinkers, but they are Nigerians. We have to understand that. So in a secular state, when you are talking about pilgrimage sponsorship, It should be more of a private affair, not using taxpayers' money to fund holy pilgrimage. But there is one thing you must also understand when it comes to the issue of vying for political support. The religious leaders are always involved. We have the political class. We have the religious class. The political class will always want to lobby with the religious class for vote. That is why you see some of them making promises that if you can be able to support us and we win election, we are going to support and sponsor you for holy pilgrimage. But I see it more as two sides of the coin. In a secular state, you must give account for every unit of currency that you spend. The money does not belong to you. It belongs to the people. What about those who don't believe that God exists? We have people in Nigeria who do not believe that God exists. They are free thinkers.
Do you believe God exists?
I do.
Okay.
I do. But we still have some people who do not believe that God exists. They are free thinkers. You don't need to prosecute them. You don't have any moral right to cast stones at them. It's their own belief. But they are citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Their rights and their belief must be protected in a secular state. We have seen issues of a religious leader threatening a governor. If you fail to sponsor us for holy pilgrimage, you have already lost your second term bid. Is it supposed to be like that? We are talking about real issue. These are causing problem in Nigeria. Let me give an issue. There is nothing wrong if the government decide to say for now, because of the volatility of foreign exchange regime. You know, Nigeria, that now the government will want to say this should be the official exchange rate, just to assist Nigerians who want to go for holy pilgrimage. There is nothing wrong about it. I feel it's a corporate social responsibility of the government and welfare of the government. But now, full sponsorship of pilgrims to holy pilgrimage, that's an issue. 119 billion naira is not a small money. What about the issue of rural electrification in this country? Where is the rural electrification project? None. It no longer exists. If government decides to spend 119 billion naira in our rural areas, believe you me, more than 10,000 houses, I'm talking in our villages, they will get power supply.
Okay, Ofino, some politicians have argued, that it didn't start with them. This all sponsoring pilgrims, as a matter of fact, is even older than the Nigerian state. Because, many years back, even before the colonizers came down to Nigeria, across the West and North Africa, the caravans they traveled, they were sponsored. But then, at that point in time, it was majorly administrative. They want to make sure that you are safe. They want to make sure that you will not contact diseases when you travel to those places. They make inquiries on behalf of the pilgrims. But then something happened, even in Nigeria, because even during the pre-colonial period, colonial period, but then certain things changed, especially during the era of oil boom in Nigeria. I'm talking about the 1970s. And then we had, Yakubu Gowon, we made it more pronounced. Even during the era of, IBB, it was also more pronounced. Sponsoring the pilgrims, full sponsorship. So who do we blame? Because at the end of the day, these people are saying it didn't start with us. It's a template. So we are basically following that template to ensure that, we don't put a stop to it. As a matter of fact, some politicians even argued sincerely that, they adopted, those leaders back then, adopted certain things from the colonizers. And then they now entrenched it into the constitution that we operate today.
I disagree with them.
Really?
I disagree. We are talking about public funds, not private funds. My own personal money, I can choose to spend it anyhow. But when it comes to issue of public fund, you don't spend it anyhow. There must be what we call accountability. And in public finance, we have what we call the spending limit. We have to be honest to ourselves. They were arguing, didn't start with them. Must you continue? If somebody is trying to introduce a bad model, must you adopt the same bad model? If somebody is trying to introduce what we call a bad precedent, must I follow suit? We are talking about public funds here. Have you ever heard that American government sponsored American Muslim for Hajj or Christian Muslim to Jerusalem? Jerusalem, Mecca and Medina today happen to be one of the most influential international tourist centers in the world. Saudi Arabia is making more money. Israel is also making more money. What stops Nigeria trying to establish a tourist center that will attract the rest of the world so that we can be able to make money? Foreign direct investment. Those two countries, Saudi Arabia and Israel, they are making a lot of money from holy pilgrimages. We have to be honest to ourselves when we are talking about secularity. Now, the political class is to blame. The religious leader is also to blame. Now, the political class have succeeded in using religion to divide us. They have also used tribalism to divide us the more. Nigeria, being a religious country, are we not supposed to have a zero corrupt economy? No! Religion in Nigeria has done us more harm than good. I stand to be corrected. Most of our religious leaders today, they are capitalists, greedy, and self-seeking individuals. Nigeria is supposed to be a country that will be adjudged and classified to have a zero corrupt economy. But most of the people that are corrupt today, they are either from the Islamic sect or from the Christian sect. How do you explain that? The high level of hypocrisy. I want to tell you today, Nigeria happens to be the world center for religious hypocrisy.
Some religious leaders have also said quite a number of times that they are being wooed by these politicians to take money, to take sponsorships like this. So what do you make of that?
No, it's the fault of the religious leader.
Okay.
The religious leader knows what does religion teaches. Religion teaches us morality, good values. But you see, some of these religious leaders, they fail to speak truth to power.
Okay.
They fail to speak truth to power. That has been the problem. There is a big problem. There is one thing this man said, the former Cuban president, Fidel Castro. He said the world is not poor, but it is weaponized. And he went further to state that if only a tenth of the billions being spent on arms race were used, he said the world hunger will no longer exist. World hunger. You know there is hunger in the world. He said now the billions of dollars that are being spent for armament, building of armament, he said if tenth, just only 1/10 of it is being spent for human welfare in the world, he said world hunger could be eradicated. That was philosophical. Most of our religious leaders today, they are also accomplishing it. Most of them have also been accused of sponsoring what we call religious terrorism in Nigeria. Religious extremism. What about that issue?
Many will question your arguments, this particular one.
No, I'm saying facts.
Okay.
Saying facts.
Okay.
Are we not having what we call religious terrorists in Nigeria today? Are we not having what we call religious extremists today in Nigeria?
Okay, Ofino, apart from religion now, there are other persons who get the sponsorship and it's not based on religion. Let me give you an example. It was reported by SR reporters recently. I'm talking about January this year, 19th. Governor Opuzodinma sponsors Imurek, 27 electoral officers and pilgrimage to Jerusalem.
Using who? His own personal fund or public funds? Governor Opuzodinma of Imo State.
These ones are not religious leaders. There are 27 electoral
We
officers.
are talking about public funds here. Okay. It does not. You don't ascribe ownership to what does not belong to you. Sovereignty belongs to Nigeria, to Nigerians, not to our elected representative or governors or president. The president, the governor, the representative, the senator, they are all a custodian of the people's sovereignty. We have to be honest to ourselves. You don't ascribe ownership to what you do not, to what does not belong to you. You don't ascribe ownership. We are talking about public funds here. That shows that you are using for public funds to sponsor certain persons. It will have been a moral justice if every citizen was being sponsored. But we are talking about public funds here. That shows that you are using for public funds to sponsor certain persons. It would have been a moral justice if every citizen was being sponsored. What stops them sponsoring every citizens? You're only sponsoring certain few, which represent a microcosm of the larger society. If you are saying that now we are talking about morality here now, now that it's good for the government, for the president to sponsor pilgrims to Holy Land. What stops the president sponsoring every Nigerian so that all of us can go to the Holy Land at the same time?
Okay, Ofino, let's also look at this angle, to this matter, because I also have this headline that says, a Niger governor Bago spends 3.02 billion naira to sponsor 357 for 2025 Hajj, despite failing state hospitals. Another headline is saying the Kebbi State government approved 10 billion naira solely for the sponsorship and assistance for Hajj pilgrimage activities. And then it has been argued, especially when you look at, the list of people that have been sponsored. Some persons are saying these governors are trying to placate their people who support them. They are trying to reward people who supported them when they were contesting elections. How do we deal with issues like that when governors, state governors, sponsor certain individuals just to say, okay, I'm grateful to you, for supporting me while I was contesting?
The governor does not have any moral right or constitutional right to do so. Politicians represent a microcosm of the larger society. Compute the figure. INEC registered 91 million voters. But when you are talking about the real political gladiators in Nigeria today, we are having 36 state governors. We are having one president. We are having one vice president. We are having 109 senators. We are having 360 House of Rep members. When you compute everything together, they are not up to 30,000. And we are having over 200 million citizens. How do you justify that? They are spending public funds, using public funds just to compensate their own. It is more of a political compensation for just the few and denying the rest of us of capital infrastructure. The money that was supposed to be used to build roads, the money that was supposed to be used to provide more hospitals, to build more schools, and the rest like that. They are now diverting it for pilgrimage sponsorship. And then be fair, religious leaders are also to be blamed. Religious leaders were supposed to tell the executive arm of government, don't use state funds to sponsor us. We don't need it. That is moral injustice. I'm educating the religious leaders now.
Is there any benefit to this, apart from the fact that, some persons have argued, just like that it is strictly political, whether to win election or to reward certain persons? Are there benefit to this? Speaking about, the religion, the popular religions that we have in Nigeria.
Who benefit the more? It is the political class. Someone that gives me a gift now, the tendency is there for me to celebrate him or her, and to say something nice. It is the governor, the president, the senators who sponsor a pilgrim that benefits the more, not the people. The people have been surcharged. They have been deprived of basic amenities. Resources is limited. When you are talking about financial resources, it's limited. So when you are talking about sponsorship of pilgrims, religious leaders have a role to play. There is nothing wrong if the religious organization decide to sponsor their own for pilgrimage, not using state funds, not using public funds. It looks more like governor steal for us and sponsor us. That is what they are saying.
Okay, some have also argued that questioning pilgrimage spending is a way of attacking religion. How do we deal with that? Because some persons, have this idea that, when you say they should not sponsor people for Hajj or to Jerusalem, you are attacking religion, you are attacking Islam, you are attacking Christianity.
We are not attacking religion. We are not attacking. Do we not have the American Muslim? The U.S. government will never sponsor any of the American Muslim to the Hajj. Neither will they sponsor any of the American Christians to Jerusalem. The most powerful country in the world. The country that has the strongest economy. You have to separate religion from state affairs. That is the problem we are having in Nigeria. Some people will tell you today that because the person does not belong to the same religion with me, even though the person is competent, I will not vote for him. Our voting in Nigeria has always tilted towards the line of what? Religion and tribalism. That is why we are having problem. not based on competence. You are talking about the issue of Hajj or going to Jerusalem. What about the issue of the Salah ram? Some people are quarreling with the governor because the governor did not give them a big ram for Salah. Some people are quarreling with the governor because the governor did not give them Christmas goat. And they are now telling the governor, you are going to lose a second term. Threatening the governor, threatening the president, because the president failed to give us bags of rice for Christmas, failed to give us bag of rice during Salah. We are going to make sure that he loses. In a Senate climb, they will never do that. How will you be telling, you are telling the governor and the president, steal public funds, use it to sponsor us for pilgrimage.
Okay, let's talk about, what it takes now, like the amounts that people need to pay, especially for people who sponsor themselves, individually. It's like millions of naira. How do we deal with that? Because some persons have said it's because of that fee, because it's so high. That's why a lot of persons look for how they can lobby their way just to get the sponsorship.
Whose fault? It's the fault of the president, the government. Nigerian currency has been devalued since 1985 to date. During the days of General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, GCFR, the military president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Why? They went to apply for loan, the IMF loan. And that loan, we call it the killer loan. You know what they said? They said Nigerian currency is too strong. Go and devalue your currency. And Babangida accepted it. No! Somebody is telling me that because I want to apply for a loan, that I should go and devalue my currency. I should go and set my house ablaze. And I consented to it. How do you describe such a man? The public are the judges. So we have to be frank and sincere to ourselves. It's because our currency has been devalued. That is why we're having problem. If they say today the Hajj fare is $1,000, convert it. It runs into millions of naira. If they say the pilgrimage fare to Jerusalem is costing $1,000, when you convert it in naira, it's millions of naira. So what you have to do is this. Government must ensure that there is stability of the Nigerian currency. But don't expect Nigerian currency to go back to 1 naira to $1. It's not going to be possible. Sometimes as an economist, I say probably the time has come for us to change our currency. I wouldn't know how it's going to work. If today Nigeria decides to say, we don't want to adopt the dollar anymore, let's go back to the British pounds. The British introduced their pound to us. Okay. British pounds. And let's see whether the currency can have value. The capitalists will not allow. Because it will affect the money they have stolen in public, in their own personal treasury, in banks. Okay,
Ofino, if the government decides to put a stop to this old sponsorship, how do you think the public will react to this? Will it cause any uproar at all?
It will not cause uproar. And again, it will also cause uproar by religious bigots. Religious bigots will react. But those of us who believe in secularism of Nigeria, we will not react. If I want to go for pilgrimage, why should I ask for state sponsorship? Why? I must find a way to ensure that I want to go to religious pilgrimage. And there is one thing religious leaders must know. Those who are unable to go to religious pilgrimage, will they miss paradise or heaven? If at all it exists.
That is subject to debate anyway.
No, I said if at all paradise or heaven exists for those who do not believe in religion. So there is a big issue in Nigeria. And religion and tribalism have divided us the more. Nigeria is so religious. But can we ever have a zero corrupt economy? Do you know that religion has caused more harm than good in Nigeria? Nigeria was supposed to have what we call a zero corrupt economy. It would have been a plus to us. It would have been a model. But those who stole public funds in Nigeria today, most of them belong to the two major religions in Nigeria.
Ofino, we have quite a number of countries that are very religious and are doing so well, speaking about the economy.
Yes, we have. Like Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, can you steal? No, can you steal? Go and steal, and let's see what is going to happen. We have to be honest to ourselves. In Nigeria today, most of our leaders go there. They see a lot of things. This country is very beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. That country was never made by angels. It was built by ordinary citizens like you and I, who believe in themselves that the time has come for us provide for ourselves a better country that will be admired and celebrated by the rest of the world. Look at Dubai. Dubai is a Muslim country. But in 1990, Dubai used to be a desert. It was a desert land. But they had a leader who saw the future. How do we turn this place into a terrorist destination in the world?
Even Japan is 70% rocky area, but it's doing so well.
Doing well. They have the right leader. They are doing well. But in Nigeria today, what we have, those who turban with 30 yards of textile material, religious especially, but deep inside them, what they want to do, evil. The same thing with those with cassock.
You might not be able to prove that, really. Do you have evidence for that?
The evidence are there.
Really? Okay,
your country.
We need to go because of time, So what is the way out to all of this? How do we regulate this? If at all, the government will still continue to sponsor, do you think, it should be slashed? Do you think we should return back to the administrative role, just government, looking for ways to make sure that people will travel, they are safe, the environment is conducive? Or what do you think? Or should we still maintain this whole 100% sponsorship, really?
You see, for now, there is a problem in Nigeria. And the problem have always been the problem from the right leadership and our constitution. Okay. We need a constitution that will define Nigeria as a secular state.
But when we have the constitution, what about those who interpret the constitution? You can have a good constitution and then...
The constitution we're having today is a fraudulent constitution.
Really?
Full of ambiguities.
Don't forget that much of the 1979 constitution, was poured into the 1999 that we are using now.
It's a fraudulent constitution. Full of controversial clauses. And the judiciary are not saying anything about it. Let's assume I was a law student. In my PhD program, my thesis would have been centered on the Nigerian constitution. Yes! Dotting the I's, crossing the T's. Worse for worse.
You might have issues with primary sources.
It doesn't count.
Okay.
I will look at that constitution. The American constitution is just a 12-page document. 12-page. I have it at home. The American constitution, I have a copy at home. 12-page document. But very powerful.
Clear.
Yes!
So you're saying the Nigerian constitution is not clear enough?
Full of ambiguities, controversies, and the judiciaries, they are happy about it. The clause. That is why we are having controversial judgment, and they are celebrating controversial judgment.
If we get a brand new constitution tomorrow,
written by the people,
is it going to change anything?
It will change. Written by the people's constitution, not a military version constitution.
You think the people will have a say?
They will have a say. In 2014, there was a confab. A lot of resolution was made. That resolution alone is a constitution. We have to be frank and sincere to ourselves.
But recently, I think around last year, there were conversations about, the government invited, or the lawmakers invited some Nigerians to be part of, drafting a new constitution.
Let me take your mind back to the recent issue on ground. The mandatory election transmission on time clause. Okay. It degenerated into issue. Okay. It degenerated into issue because it was being expunged. The people want what? An online electronic transmission of what? Election result. That has been our agitation. But our representative at the floor of the Senate, they decided to expunge it out. Nigerians are reacting. Somebody now asked me, what is my own? I said, Abraham Lincoln defined democracy as the government of the people, by the people and for the people. In Nigeria today, we are supposed to have a representative government. But do you know what we have? Misrepresentative government. That is what we are having. Rather than have us having representative government, we are having what called misrepresentative government, or what I call misrepresentation. Okay. The people should be supreme. The people should be supreme. If a lot of us are saying that we want a secular state So be it.
So in essence, you're saying the social contract has been breached
Has been breached.
between the government and the people.
And the people.
We will continue this conversation some other time.
Thank you, Yimi.
On the issue of the Senate, I think the House is divided. Some are saying yes, some are saying no to it. So we'll talk about it some other time. We need to go. A nation's fate may lift its soul, but only responsible governance can secure its future. You've been listening to Big Story, and our conversation today has peeled back the layers behind government-funded pilgrimage sponsorship, from its modest administrative beginnings to its present-day status as a high-cost political and fiscal undertaking. As we've heard, the issue is no longer just about religion. It is about priorities, constitutional responsibility, and the ethical use of public funds in a time of economic hardship, when hospitals lack equipment, schools are underfunded, and citizens struggle to survive. Every naira spent must answer a fundamental question: who truly benefit? My thanks to Ignatius Bosalime Ufino, researcher and public affairs analyst, for his insight. And of course, Amuluayemi Adelakun. This has been The Big Story, where we don't just report the news, we interrogate it. Thank you for being a part of today's session. Please stay with us. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we move on to Trend Watch. We'll be right back.